Shalom. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And peace and mercy to the hopeful elect, the 144,000 men that are doing this work in sincerity and in truth around the four corners of the earth. And much love to the 1/3 and the innumerable multitude of you believers out there. To you all, I say Shalom. I'm the brother Yeshaya, and I pray, Lord willing, that this lesson is edifying through the Spirit. And it's probably going to be relatively quick. I think I'm going to title this something like "The Brothers Be Right," you know. And I know that's probably not the political correct way to say it, but it's just true. The brothers be right, man. You know. So, and I'm not going to get into it, but I had a situation regarding a relative earlier today, and we had fellowship, and so I was just telling the brothers some things that was on my mind. All right, and they were just giving me some feedback and wise words, and even if they might not understand your certain relationship with a family member, right, they're still giving you wise words according to the scriptures and the balance that the Lord would give. And, that's something that we got to take heed of and appreciate and consider. All right. Now, if you're unwilling to do that, then that means your mind is not in the right position. All right. And, at the end of the day, if you have a certain decision about something, then, hey, that is what it is. I'm going to get a precept on that, too. And that goes into the same chapter, actually. But at the end of the day, you always have to take heed, consider, and truly meditate on the things that the brothers say, because there's a 99% chance that they're spot on. 100% chance, really, they're spot on. But of course, we always leave that room for wanting to do what we want to do, right? But the spirit is always the right? We force not the course of the river, okay? Yahweh Shem Shah is constantly trying to tell us things, and as much as the life you lived, you might try to tell yourself certain things, but the Lord is trying to open something and convey something to you too. And you got to be willing to receive that, even if it's not something that's pretty, something that you wouldn't like to do, right? So you gotta meditate when the brothers speak, man. We always say it's like, you gotta act as if you're Howard Shah saying it to you, because ultimately it's coming from the spirit, especially when brothers are in union about something, and so, I just want to say, the water for the brothers, the brotherhood, and, always keeping us on our toes, and, putting the faith of Yahweh Shem Shai in us, and giving us counsel from the Supreme, from the Spirit, to be able to accept these things and to be able to grow from these things. All right. This is Ecclesiasticus 37:12. It says, "But be continually with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry." So the Lord says to be continually with the godly man, right? Someone who knows the commandments of the Lord. Because when you keep the commandments of the Lord, those men have this. We speak the same thing, and we have the same mind, right? He says, if thou will sorrow with thee, he said he will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry. So even those times of moments like that, when we have certain discussions, brothers still feel your pain, even if they're not. It's called empathy, right? You got sympathy and you got empathy. Empathy is when you're not necessarily experiencing something, but somebody can imagine how that pain feels, right? So brothers are empathetic, okay? And plus, it says if one member suffer, we all suffer together. So if you're explaining something to a brother, brothers are trying to understand your situation, right? So when they're giving you certain words, it's because we got it. That's how we judge matters, hearing certain things, right? Hearing the whole matter, and then we make a decision. Right, it's verse 13. It says, "And let the counsel of thine own heart stand, for there is no man more faithful unto thee than it." Right, and that I understand all too well, right? And so that's what I meant. Like, some things you're going to make a certain decision on your own, but hey, at the end of the day, that's because you might think you know what's best in a certain situation, right? But the brothers are directing you in the right steps. And that's why we always gotta pray. Yeah, how about Shemel Shah? Order my steps, as our forefather King David did. Right, order our paths aright. All right, that's gotta constantly be a prayer. Let thy word be a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Okay, and the brothers are always issuing out these words and telling you and informing you. And for if you're gonna be anybody that's gonna be rebellious of the wise words and just never going to consider them and take them in your mind, that means something's not right. You always have to consider what men of the Lord are saying. That's a lesson that's most times should be easy to learn, but it can be hard to learn too. There's been plenty of times where especially when you were younger in the faith and maybe you didn't listen or you did it your own way and then it didn't work out in your favor when the men of the Lord might have told you. So just being mindful to Yahweh Shemel Shai for always walking with us and giving us valuable kindness through the Spirit by the mouths of the prophets. All right, it says, for a man's mind is sometime wont to tell him more than 7 watchmen that sit above in a high tower. All right, so, I was talking to the brother Q about this, all right, as we were in the car. I told him, this is just something, me being open with y'all. I'm an overthinker, all right? I've always been like that my whole life. And, I do think that it benefits me because I even thought I'd rather be an overthinker than an underthinker. But just because you're not overthinker doesn't necessarily mean you're an underthinker. Maybe you think just adequately enough, the fit purpose. And so, and not to just put my brother on the spot, but I told Q, I was like, man, everybody can't be as cool and collective as you. For anybody that knows Quadash, he's a Gadite, so he has a certain spiritual resolve to him. So sometimes something might be bothering him and you wouldn't know, or he could be happy and you wouldn't know, right? Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have emotions. He will show those emotions truly. But at the end of the day, he knows how to not overthink a situation, right? And a lot of men are gifted with that talent. That's not necessarily one that was given to me. But I do think there are benefits to both sides, right? And so that's just always been a part of my nature. But it says a man's mind is sometimes wont to tell him more than 7 watchmen, right? So 7 watchmen, you're like, hey, is there somebody over there? Hey, somebody in the forest, you saw that light right there? Did you hear that noise? So it's always constant mind movement, okay? But at the end of the day, that's just your mind running rampant, doing more than it's supposed to be doing. Right, verse 15 says, and above all this, pray to the Most High that he would direct thy way in truth. And that's really what the main lesson is, right? You got to pray to the Most High that he directs your way in truth. Call out your Bashar Shah. And so this is the point here. It says, let reason go before every enterprise and counsel before every action. All right. So it says, let reason go before every enterprise. Right. So before you're making decisions, you're supposed to be reasonable about it. All right. And counsel before every action. You're supposed to be taking counsel. We live in a generation where people don't take counsel. And I told the brothers, I was like, hey, brothers, I need counsel. You know what I'm saying? And I don't normally do that, but this is something that was heavy weighing on my spirit, and that's why it's difficult. But at the end of the day, the brothers will keep it real with you. All right, brothers gonna give you that real, but they're gonna comfort you too. But brothers gonna keep it real and let you know what you need to do. And so I meditated on that as much, and so I'm just thankful to Yahweh Shemel Shah for helping me be able to see these things, man. The words that brothers are dropping on you. All right, this is Ecclesiasticus 6:6. It says, be in peace with many, nevertheless have but one counselor of 1,000. I didn't really mean to get that one, but I guess it's the spirit. You can be in peace with many, where really you got one counselor out of 1,000. Sometimes there might be, I don't mean you can't talk to multiple brothers, but it's usually one brother you might talk to that when you go to for harder things, for stuff that you really need to talk about, it's usually one brother that you can really confide in, 1 or 2 brothers, that you can confide in, But it's 144,000. So, hey, you might have 144 counselors. Just making a little joke there. But jumping down to verse 14, it says, a faithful friend is a strong defense, and he that hath found such, and one hath found a treasure. And that's what the brothers are, man. The Lord has given us faithful friends, a strong defense, even against your own mind, because your mind can play tricks on you too, right? So that's one that's truly a treasure, man. So you got to treasure the occupant. It says the day is going to come when you're going to desire to hear another man's voice. You're going to desire to hear a brother's voice. Okay, so the Lord said we can find a treasure by finding these men, a faithful friend. It said nothing doeth countervail a faithful friend, and his excellency is invaluable. And I feel that way about many brothers in the camp, man. And brothers are faithful friends, man. They're a strong defense against the wiles of the devil, the ways of this world, your own thoughts, problems, issues. It says his excellency is invaluable. So it means it has no value to it. It's priceless. Brothers are priceless, man. It says a faithful friend is the medicine of life, and they that fear the Lord shall find him. And look at his great glory that Yahweh Shemel Shai has bestowed upon us. Well, we got the medicine of life by having faithful friends who's really down for us, who's going to keep it honest with us, and who's going to love us even when things seem difficult. It said, whoso feareth the Lord shall direct his friendship aright, for as he is, so shall his neighbor be also. What they say, that's where you really get birds of a feather flock together. That's where that comes from, right? It says, for as he is, so shall his neighbor be also. So basically, men of the same spirit are going to walk. Can two walk together except they be agreed? All right? It says, my son, gather instruction from thy youth up, so thou shalt find wisdom to thine own age, thine old age. So we're looking at wisdom as we grow older and older and older, right? So brothers, be right, man, and you got to always evaluate that. You got to be like, damn, think about what I said. Think about what they said. Now put together the dots. Brothers, be right, man. Call out your Bashem Shah for being able to understand these things too. This is Ecclesiasticus 32. I'm going to start at 16. It says, they that fear the Lord shall find judgment and shall kindle justice as light. It says, a sinful man will not be reproved, but find an excuse according to his will. It says, and this one and the next one are really the verses, the points. It says, a man of counsel will be considerate, but a strange and proud man is not daunted with fear, even when of himself he hath done without counsel. You see? So a man of counsel will be considerate. You got to consider. Right? When you read the book of Haggai, the first chapter, it says, O ye Israel, consider your ways. It says, this is verse 19, do nothing without advice. And when thou hast once done, repent not. Right? Do nothing without advice, man. Every decision that we be having to make. So, you got to, give a call to a brother. Hey, brother, what you think about this? Hey, brother, how does this sound? Right? And brothers going to give you that real. That's the thing. Brothers going to give you that real, man. But you got to be man enough to take it on and to learn from that and grow from that. Do nothing without advice, right? So we look for advice, man. I got a text message the other day. I ain't going to get in there, but a text message I was not supposed to be getting. And I did. Hit up the elder brother lawyer, like, hey, lawyer, what you think about this, man? And he told me no. I didn't really want to do it no way, but, he told me no. So I was like, whatever answer you go with, that's what I'm going with. And he said no. So you gotta make, that's how you move, man, in the spirit. Do nothing without advice, man. And then once the decision is made, something like that, you got to be willing to take it on the head, too. Okay? It says, go not in the way wherein thou mayest fall, and stumble not among the stones, right? You got to be wise about where you're stepping, about the things you're saying and the things you're doing. Be not confident in a plain way, and beware of thine own children. See that? That's hard for people to swallow too, but it's the truth. It's in there. In every good work, trust thy own soul, for this is the keeping of the commandments. He that believeth in the Lord taketh heed to the commandment, and he that trusteth in him shall flare never the worse. You know, so having that strong belief in Yahweh Bashem Shai, taking heed to his commandments and trusting him, you're never gonna have to worry about the worst things. You're never gonna have to overthink, because when you got Yahweh Bashem Shai, we really don't have to overthink, right? You're taking it step by step, minute by minute, day by day, you know, week by week, man. You know, but one day all of this is gonna change. We're gonna be free of this wickedness in this place, man. We're gonna be free of the wickedness of our people not doing right. Right? We're gonna be praising Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. You know? One glory at a time, man. You know, and so now when brothers, you know, giving us wise counsel, wise advice, wise words, we have to take that and grow with it and go with it. And pray the Lord always leave his mercy upon us. Because it's about to get terribly bad, and people are going to want faithful friends. People are going to want defense. People are going to want to be considerate. People are going to want to call on Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. People are going to want faithful friends, man. But a lot of people are going to be lacking them. It says, friends shall turn on each other. You know, friends are going to be hating themselves and doing all types of things they don't want to be doing. But it's going to get bad here in America soon. So the Wadi Yahweh Bashem Al Shai for giving us brothers that couldn't help us, direct us in the right direction, man. So, hey, I'm going to wrap it up with that. I truly do hope and pray that this lesson was edifying. I want to give all the praise, all the honor, all the glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Kodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and mercy to the hopeful elect. Until next time, Shalom.